Thank you, Father. Good morning. I'm Charlie Stengel, or Chuck Stengel. Again, the name confusion continues. I'm Judy's husband, Chuck and Lenore's son-in-law, and have been given the opportunity to speak a few words about Lenore this morning. On behalf of the Christel family, on behalf of Chuck and Judy and her siblings, they are the more reserved Germans and chose to defer to the outspoken Irishman to come up and offer a few words about Lenore. So I'll happily do my best to represent them to you and to talk about Lenore a little bit. This typically is the part, if I'm doing a little public speaking, where I'm going to warm the crowd up with a joke. And I thought, well, that's easy. I can just go Google mother-in-law jokes. And so I did that. And there are a lot of mother-in-law jokes on the internet. I have some here. Ever since it started raining, my mother-in-law has been standing looking sadly through the window. If the rain gets heavier, I may have to let her in. You're right. It's a bad. I just got back from a pleasure trip. I took my mother-in-law to the airport. These are some of the better jokes. And so I thought, I'm not going to do mother-in-law jokes because the truth is, I loved my mother-in-law. And well, my mother-in-law, and she loved me. So I'm not going to do that. I've known Lenore for a long time. Met her when I was just 19 years old, when Judy dragged me in off the street. And at the time, I probably had a few rough edges. I was like a lot of 19-year-old men at the time. And what I remember is clearly about Lenore, and it's been mentioned by a couple of people here today, that how sort of open and accepting and easy she was to get along with. She didn't judge me ever, not once, not for a second. She opened up her arms, opened up her house, invited me in, said, there's the refrigerator. We got both kinds of beer here, Budweiser and Michelob. At the time, Chuck was a stockholder in Anheuser-Busch, and we considered it our fiscal responsibility to imbibe as much as we could in order to keep the stock prices up, and I tried my best. We were pretty good at that. I and her family members learned a lot from Lenore just by being around her. She was not afraid to offer advice or to drop a funny quote or a life saying or things like that, things that I might qualify as Lenore-isms. That's what I named them for today. One thing I learned from Lenore in terms of food pairings is that you can put Budweiser and chocolate cake together and it works really well. Would not have imagined that, but by golly, one of the first times I met her, we shared Budweiser and chocolate cake, and I think of her every time I do that since then. Lenore said that it's okay if you leave a couple of dirty dishes around the sink. That's for seed. And she's right. You leave a couple of dirty plates or a couple of dirty cups around the sink, come back a couple hours later, there's more dirty dishes. She says, don't worry about all the dirty dishes. She told all of us, my kids will know this, that no matter how much you eat, there's always room for ice cream because it melts and fills in the cracks. To her, All dogs were boys, all cats were girls. No matter what, when she saw a dog, she'd say, he's a good wolf. He's a good wolf. We always had girl dogs, she always got it wrong. She had simple philosophies in life. You mentioned she didn't overcomplicate. She would say, this too will pass. Even in the last period of time, this too will pass, or whatever. She, Pete told me a story, a saying she had. If you have the chance today to see the Mini Cooper out in the parking lot, which was her pride, her joy, that car. And she always drove a stick shift, forever. She always drove a stick shift. Grew up on the farm, learned how to drive stick, and always had little Hondas or little cars with stick shift. She told Peter once that automatic transmissions are for old people with no left legs. Bear in mind, she told him this when she was 80 years old after having had both knees replaced. She has a legendary left foot. People know that. Peter told me a story. A number of years ago, he and Lenore were driving out west from Wisconsin to California. They were on a road trip together, and they were driving through North Dakota, or one of these places where it's sort of unlimited speed limits. And Pete was driving the car, and he, for a period of time, was driving at about 120 miles an hour. And then they traded off drivers, and Lenore was going to drive, and Pete took a nap in the car. And when he woke up, he looked over, and Lenore was driving 125 miles an hour. And he looked over, he said, Mom, you know how fast you're going? And she said, well, you weren't doing it. and then she said, don't tell your father. So don't tell him. I'll come back to that car in a little bit, but wanted to change the topic a little bit here. A week ago, Sunday, so not even a week ago, Judy and I and Chuck went over to meet with Max from the funeral prep. And getting things figured out, it had been a long night, kind of a rough night. We were all a little ragged, and Max is really doing a good job of helping us out and getting questions answered and helping us figure things out. And one of the things Max needed to do was say, I need some work history on Lenore. I need to know, where she worked. And Chuck immediately said, well, she worked at plumbing supply for a long time. And then Judy's, quickly chimed in and said, well, she also worked for Saloon's law firm for a long time. And Max was writing this stuff down. He was writing down. And then Chuck jumped back in and he said, she worked at Stocks as a waitress and worked at Left Ed as a waitress. Here's a great Left Ed story there. I can't tell it now, but I love that story from earlier today. And then I said, boy, I think I remember her working at Hartman's Greenhouse, and she might have worked at, anyway, the list went on, and we realized she had this big resume of work. She loved to work. But what I've learned about her, what I sort of knew about her was that, it's not that she didn't like money. Her purpose in working was to help people. She really loved to do things for people. Her work was always about the benefit it could bring to somebody else, not how to sort of make her rich or anything like that. And the story that came to mind that sort of, I think, exemplified that is that Pete lived in San Diego for a number of years. He had a house out there that he did a lot of work on and a lot of fix-up. And so Chuck and Lenore would take trips out there and spend time and work on this house. And then Lenore would come back and she would talk about their adventures and their trips out there. And I can remember her telling me that the story of this day, and I think maybe it was her favorite kind of day. She'd get up in the morning, drink some coffee, get in Pete's pickup truck and drive down to Home Depot, and and get the supplies they needed for the day, paint or woodworking or whatever they were working on that day. She'd get the stuff, and she'd drive around behind Home Depot, and she'd hire a couple of day laborers, undocumented fellas back there that she could hire and pay cash. So she'd get a couple of workers, bring them back to Pete's house, work side by side with these guys all day, doing whatever the chore of the day was, and cook for them, and then at the end of the day, pay them and take them back. And at the end of the day, she was exhausted and happy. She loved that. She loved doing that. She loved work as a gift. And I always kind of admire that, because I think that part of her really lives in her family. You can't live with someone like that and not be affected by it, right? I think about her daughters. They're smart, they're hardworking people, they could have done many different things with their life, and they chose to do work that helps people. Their mother lives in that. Good job, girls. Her son knew she would always help and never ask for anything. So in return, he gave her a gift. It's parked outside right now, the Mini Cooper. His giving made her feel special. She loved that car. Pete's mother lives in him. Good job, Peter. Star. Her husband helped her at a time when she most needed it. 1 week ago today, in her most difficult moments, Chuck was with her. He spent the night on the couch next to her bed as she lingered between heaven and earth because he loved her and wanted to help her. Good job, Chuck. So, you see, if we remember a couple of Lenoreisms and we help people, then Lenore lives in us. Thank you, Lenore. Good job. Love you. Now, because I'm Irish, I have to say, Lenore, may the road rise to meet you, and the wind be always at your back. May the rain fall softly on your fields, and the rug and the sun shine warmly on your face. And until we meet again, may God keep you safely in the palm of his hand.